They told me working the night shift as a security guard would be easy money. Just keep an eye on the cameras, my supervisor said. If something moves, check it out. Otherwise, enjoy the quiet. He forgot to mention that quiet can drive a man insane. The storage facility was a massive concrete maze, rows of locked units, flickering fluorescent lights, and an echo that made every footstep sound like it came from somewhere else. My shift ran from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., and most nights I'd sit in the control room surrounded by 12 monitors showing 12 different camera feeds. For the first few weeks, nothing happened. I'd sip cheap coffee, scroll through my phone, and occasionally walk the perimeter just to stretch my legs. I thought I had it easy. Then came the night of November 14th. It started like any other shift. The air was cold, the hum of the old building filled the silence, and the fluorescent lights buzzed above my head like distant insects. Around 1:13 a.m., I noticed something strange on camera 7, the one overlooking aisle D. There was someone standing there. A woman. At least I thought it was a woman. She was facing away from the camera, wearing what looked like a white dress that reached her ankles. Her hair was long, dark, and tangled, falling down her back like wet ropes. I leaned closer to the monitor. That aisle had motion sensors. If someone was moving around, the alarm would have gone off. But the panel beside me stayed green. No alert. Still, company protocol said I had to check. I grabbed my flashlight, clipped the radio to my shoulder, and headed out into the hall. My boots echoed against the concrete floor. The deeper I went, the colder it got. Aisle D was near the back of the complex, far from the main entrance. The overhead light there was dead, so everything was bathed in a faint orange glow from the exit sign. "Hello?" I called out. My voice sounded too loud in the silence. "Storage is closed. You can't be in here." No answer. I turned the corner, shining my light down the aisle. Empty. Every metal door was shut, every padlock secure. The air was still, heavy, like the building itself was holding its breath. I walked all the way down and back again, but there was no sign of anyone. When I returned to the control room, I checked camera 7 again. The woman was gone. I sat back staring at the screen, telling myself maybe it had been a trick of the light. A reflection, maybe. Or a glitch. That's what I told myself anyway. Until it happened again. The next night. Same time. Same camera. Only this time, she wasn't facing away. She was looking right into the lens. Her face was pale, almost gray, and her eyes were wide, unblinking. Her mouth hung slightly open, as if frozen mid-breath. And then, she smiled. It was a small smile, subtle, but it crawled across her face in a way that made my stomach twist. I looked down at the live feed timer, 1:13 a.m. The seconds ticked by. Then suddenly, the feed flickered. When the picture cleared, she wasn't in the aisle anymore. She was standing in the control room, behind me, on the screen. For a second, I couldn't move. My hands froze over the keyboard. I slowly turned around. Nothing. The room was empty except for the hum of monitors and the faint crackle of the radio. I don't remember much after that except the sound of my own heartbeat. I replayed the footage, rewinding to the exact moment the feed flickered, but the recording was blank. The system had glitched for exactly 7 seconds, and when it came back online, the aisle was empty. The next morning I reported it. My supervisor laughed. "Old cameras glitch all the time. Don't scare yourself over some static, rookie." I wanted to believe him. But over the next few nights, the activity got worse. It wasn't just camera 7 anymore, it was all of them. Sometimes I'd see movement in the far aisles, shadows shifting when no one was there. The motion sensors would flash red, then immediately turn green. And every time I checked the footage, those 7 seconds would be missing. 7 seconds of silence, 7 seconds of nothing. By the 5th night, I stopped doing patrols altogether. I just sat there glued to the monitors watching for her. That's when I started hearing it. At first I thought it was the wind, but the building was sealed tight. The sound came from the intercom system, soft whispers like someone trying to speak through static. Then one night the whisper turned into a voice. It said my name. just once, whispered directly into my ear. I turned in my chair so fast I nearly fell. The room was empty, my breath fogged in the cold air. When I looked back at the monitors, every single camera had frozen, except one, camera 9. It showed me, sitting in the control room, staring at the monitors. Only, it wasn't live. The timestamp said 12:58 a.m., but it was 1:22. The me on the screen blinked, looked straight into the camera, and then slowly stood up. I checked the door behind me, still closed, locked. The me on the screen began walking down the hallway toward aisle D. I don't know why, but I grabbed my flashlight and followed. The halls were darker than usual. The air smelled like wet concrete and old dust. When I reached aisle D, I could see the faint light from camera 7 blinking overhead. That's when I heard footsteps. Not mine. They came from behind one of the storage units, soft, deliberate. I aimed my flashlight and caught a glimpse of movement. Someone stepped out. It was me. Same uniform, same badge, same terrified expression. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but no sound came out. His eyes darted past me, toward the end of the aisle. I turned. The woman in white was standing there, closer this time. I could see her face now, skin stretched tight, eyes dark and bottomless. Her mouth moved, but her words didn't match her lips. It sounded like two voices speaking at once, one human, one not. She raised her hand and pointed at me. I felt something pull me backward, like a rope tightening around my chest. The other version of me lunged forward, but before he could reach me, the lights went out. Total darkness. I must have blacked out, because when I opened my eyes, I was back in the control room. The monitors were flickering, looping the same 7 seconds over and over. In each feed, I could see myself walking through the aisles, sometimes followed by that same pale figure. The timestamp read 3:07 a.m. That's the last thing I remember. They found me the next morning, sitting in my chair, eyes open, staring at the monitors. I don't remember calling anyone. I don't even remember leaving the building. My supervisor said the camera footage from that night was corrupted, except for one clip. It showed me, standing in the control room watching myself on the monitors. Then another me, identical, walked in behind me. The clip ends when the lights go out. They say I screamed, but there's no sound, just static. And somewhere in that static, if you listen closely enough, you can hear a woman whisper my name. People always say the graveyard shift attracts weird people. They were right. I took the job at Marlene's 24-hour diner because I needed the cash. It was a rundown place off the highway, buzzing neon lights, greasy counters, the smell of burnt coffee lingering in the air. It never closed. Ever. My shift ran from midnight to 8 a.m. The first few nights were quiet. I'd wipe tables, refill coffee pots, and scroll through my phone. The same two regulars would come in, a trucker named Hank who always ordered bacon and eggs, and an old man who nursed a single cup of coffee until sunrise. But then, one night around 2:14 a.m., someone new walked in. The bell above the door jingled softly as he entered. A man in a dark, tattered suit, his face pale and sharp like he hadn't slept in days. His shoes were scuffed, his tie was crooked, and his hands shook slightly when he sat down in booth 3. He didn't look around, didn't even blink. He just stared at the table. "Coffee?" I asked, trying to sound cheerful. He nodded once. I poured him a cup of black coffee. He didn't say a word, didn't drink it either. He just stared at the steam rising from the mug. After exactly 30 minutes, he stood up, left a crumpled dollar bill on the table, and walked out. I thought that was strange, but hey, night shifts make you see all kinds of things. The next night, at exactly 2:14 a.m., the doorbell jingled again. Same man, same booth, same cup of black coffee. He stayed until 2:44, didn't drink, then left without a word. This went on every single night for a week. Same time, same seat, same untouched coffee. It became a routine. Sometimes I'd catch him glancing out the window toward the empty highway, like he was waiting for something, or someone. The headlights of passing trucks would flicker across his face, but he never reacted. On the 8th night, curiosity got the better of me. When he left, I asked my coworker, Nancy, if she'd seen him before. She was in her 50s, always smoking, always grumpy. Her expression darkened. "You mean the man in the old suit?" she asked. "Yeah, what's his deal?" Nancy stubbed out her cigarette and said quietly, "You've seen him too, huh?" That's when she told me something that made my skin crawl. 5 years ago, before you started, there was a bad accident out on Highway 9. A car flipped over, burst into flames. They found the driver burned beyond recognition, wearing a dark suit. I tried to laugh it off. "You're telling me he's a ghost?" She didn't smile. "Ask Marlene," she said. "She used to serve him before the crash." I did ask Marlene the next morning when she came in to open. Her face went pale. "Don't talk about him," she whispered. "If you ignore him, he leaves you alone." That was the moment I realized something wasn't right about this place. Still, I came in the next night. Bills don't pay themselves. At exactly 2:14 a.m., he arrived again. This time, I couldn't help myself. When I set down his coffee, I said, "You come here every night, what's your name?" He didn't answer. Instead, he slowly turned his head toward me. His eyes were the color of ash, dull, lifeless, but locked on mine. Then, in a voice so soft I almost didn't hear it, he said, 244. I blinked. What? He just repeated it. 244. I walked away. At 2:44 exactly, he stood up, left his dollar on the table, and walked out into the fog. The moment he touched the door, the diner lights flickered. Nancy, who was brewing another pot of coffee, froze mid-motion. The fluorescent bulbs above us buzzed, dimmed, and then flared back to life. And just like that, he was gone. I told myself I was imagining things, sleep deprivation, too much caffeine, the usual excuses. But the next night, things got worse. He came in at 2:14 as usual, but this time, he didn't sit in his booth. He sat at the counter, right in front of me. His hands were shaking and his lips moved soundlessly. I leaned closer. "Sir, you okay?" He looked up. His pupils were dilated. There was soot on his face, black streaks across his jaw and neck. Then he whispered, "You're late." My stomach dropped. "What?" "You're late," he said again, louder this time. The lights flickered again. The hum of the refrigerator cut off. Every sound in the diner stopped. When I looked around, Nancy was frozen mid-step, a glass of orange juice suspended halfway between the counter and her hand. The clock on the wall had stopped at 2:44. I turned back to the man, but he wasn't there anymore. The booth was empty. The door was shut. And yet, his coffee was still steaming. That was the first night I ran out mid-shift. I didn't even grab my coat. When I came back the next morning, Marlene was furious until she saw my face. She didn't fire me. She just said quietly, "He followed you, didn't he?" I wanted to scream at her, ask what she meant, but she just turned and walked away. That night, I didn't go to work. I stayed home, lights on, waiting for dawn. At 2:14 a.m., the power in my apartment went out. I sat frozen on the couch, every muscle tense. Then from the hallway, I heard it. The faint jingle of a diner doorbell. I turned toward my front door. There was no one there. But when I looked down, there was a dollar bill on the floor. Crumpled. Wet. Smelling faintly of coffee. The next morning, I quit the diner. I didn't even go back for my last paycheck. I thought that was the end of it. But 2 nights later, I got a call from Nancy. Her voice was trembling. "He came back," she said. "But this time, he stayed past 2:44. Then the line went dead." I drove back to the diner. The parking lot was empty. The neon sign buzzed weakly in the fog. Inside, the place was dark except for the faint glow of the coffee machine. Nancy was sitting in booth 3. Her eyes were wide open, but she wasn't breathing. A full cup of black coffee sat in front of her. I called the police, but when they arrived, the body was gone. Booth 3 was spotless, not even a coffee stain left behind. The officer who took my statement seemed unnerved. "You know what's weird?" he said. "We got another report like this years ago. A man burned alive out on Highway 9. They said he used to stop by this diner every night before the crash." He paused, then added, "They found his car wrapped around a pole. The clock in his dashboard froze at exactly 2:44 a.m. I didn't go back after that. I moved to another town, changed my number, but I still can't sleep at night, because every so often, I wake up around 2:14, and somewhere, faintly, I hear it. The sound of a diner bell jingling, and a voice whispering from the darkness, 'You're late.'" Everyone warned me that the morgue night shift messes with your head. I thought they were exaggerating. I was wrong. When I started working at St. Alder's Hospital, I was desperate. Rent was overdue, and this was the only job hiring. I had no medical background, no training, just the willingness to sit through 8 hours of silence surrounded by the dead. The morgue was 2 floors below ground level. A cold, sterile hallway led to the main room. Rows of stainless steel drawers, the hum of freezers, the faint buzz of fluorescent lights that never quite stopped flickering. My tasks were simple: record new arrivals, maintain temperature logs, make sure no unauthorized access occurred. Easy. At least that's what I thought during my first week. But by the second, I started noticing little things, like how the lights would dim for just a moment every night around 3 a.m., or how the air vents would whistle softly, almost like someone whispering. And the worst part? Sometimes, when I passed certain drawers, the metal would feel warm. I kept telling myself it was just stress, sleep deprivation. The morgue is the kind of place that plays tricks on your mind. But everything changed the night we received the accident victim. It was a rainy Tuesday. Around 11:40 p.m., the elevator doors opened, and 2 orderlies wheeled in a covered gurney. The sheet over it was soaked through, crimson beneath the white fabric. "Car crash," one of them muttered. "Didn't make it." I signed the log, helped transfer the body to drawer 9, and did my usual routine. Toe tag, ID number, temperature check. As I slid the drawer shut, I heard something that made me pause. A faint tap, like fingernails brushing against metal. I froze, hand still on the handle. The tapping stopped. I laughed nervously and muttered, "Welcome to the night shift." But that laugh didn't last long, because over the next hour, I kept hearing it. Soft, intermittent. Coming from inside drawer 9, I told myself bodies move sometimes. Gas releases, muscles twitch. That's all it was. Until the whisper came. It was around 2:55 a.m. I was filling out paperwork when I heard my name. Whispered. "Eli." I turned toward the drawers. The sound came again, clearer this time, raspier. "Eli." I dropped my pen. "Who's there?" No answer. The room was silent except for the hum of the freezers. I took a few steps toward drawer 9. My heart hammered against my ribs. I could see condensation forming around the edges of the metal, tiny beads of frost melting into thin streams. I swallowed hard and pulled the drawer open. The body was still there, pale, eyes closed, mouth slightly open. I leaned closer, and then the body's eyes snapped open. I stumbled backward, hitting the wall. My flashlight clattered to the floor. When I looked again, his eyes were shut. I stood there for a full minute, my breath clouding in the cold air. Finally, I slammed the drawer shut and locked it. That was enough. I called my supervisor, Dr. Keller, told him the body was moving. He laughed. "Bodies don't move, Eli. Get some rest. You're just tired." But I wasn't imagining it. The next night, drawer 9 was empty. The logbook showed no record of removal, no paperwork, no signature, just gone. I checked every storage unit, every corner of the morgue, but there was nothing. I even rewound the security footage. And that's when I noticed something horrifying. At 3:07 a.m., the footage glitched. For 7 seconds, the screen went dark. When it came back, I was standing at the drawers, staring into the open slot where the body had been. only I wasn't moving. I was frozen there, head tilted, like I was listening to something. Then, the me on screen turned to look directly into the camera and smiled. That night, I didn't go home. I stayed in the hospital break room until sunrise. When I finally convinced myself to return the next evening, everything felt different. The air was heavier. The temperature had dropped 5 degrees. As soon as I entered the morgue, I noticed all the drawers were slightly open, just an inch, every single one. I closed them all, one by one, until I reached the last row. That's when I saw it, my own name tag, lying on the floor in front of drawer 9. I hadn't dropped it. It had been ripped from my uniform. The plastic cracked, the clip twisted. I stood frozen, staring at my name on that small piece of plastic. And then the whisper came again, right behind me. Eli. I turned slowly. The drawer was open. The same body lay inside. But this time, the eyes were open and moving, tracking me. The mouth twitched, and in a broken, wet voice it whispered, "You took my place." The lights flickered. The temperature plummeted. And then every single drawer slammed open at once. The sound was deafening. The cold air hit me like a wave. Inside each drawer I saw faces, gray, lifeless, but all turned toward me. Their mouths opened in unison, releasing a long, low moan that rattled through my bones. I ran. The hallway lights flickered as I sprinted toward the elevator, but when I hit the call button, nothing happened. The panel was dead. I turned back, and at the far end of the hall, a shadow was standing, human-shaped, still, watching. It started walking toward me, slowly, deliberately. I stumbled backward into the stairwell, slamming the door behind me. As I ran up the stairs, the whispers followed. Hundreds of them. My name echoing in overlapping voices. When I finally burst out onto the first floor, everything went silent. The lights were steady again, the hallways empty. I didn't go back down there, not that night, not ever again. The next morning, I went straight to Dr. Keller's office and told him everything. He stared at me for a long time, then said, "Eli, the body in drawer 9 was yours." I laughed, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. He opened a file on his desk, my name, my photo, my employee number. Attached to it was a death certificate. Date of death, November 3rd. Car accident. I stared at him, shaking my head. "That's impossible. I'm here. I've been working all week." Dr. Keller's expression didn't change. "You were brought in 11 nights ago. You were the accident victim." My mouth went dry. No, I tagged that body myself." He leaned forward. "Drawer 9. I stood up, backing away. My head spun. The air felt wrong, too heavy, too sharp. I turned and bolted from his office. But as I ran through the hospital halls, everyone I passed ignored me. Nurses brushed right by. Orderlies wheeled carts straight through me. Their faces were blank, unseeing. I ran to the front doors, but when I pushed, my hands passed through the glass. That's when I finally understood. I was still down there, in drawer 9. The nights since then have all blurred together. I don't sleep, I don't eat. I just wander the hospital corridors unseen, unheard, waiting for the next night shift attendant to come downstairs. Because every so often, I hear the elevator doors open, footsteps echoing through the hallway. And when they do, I whisper. I whisper their name. And sooner or later they hear me. They open the drawer, and then I'm not alone anymore.